Amy's life had always revolved around the mysteries of the cosmos, and she had long dreamed of venturing beyond the confines of Earth to unravel the secrets hidden in the universe's vast and silent reaches. Now, as one of the most accomplished space scientists in the world, she had been entrusted with a solo mission, a bold, dangerous assignment to explore a remote and enigmatic planet deep within an uncharted region of space. This desert world, unnamed and untouched by human hands, was believed to hold geological anomalies that could unlock answers about extraterrestrial life or phenomena that Earth's most advanced instruments could not yet explain. She knew the stakes were high. Months of training and preparation had brought her to this moment. With the hopes of humanity resting on her shoulders, Amy launched into the blackness of space aboard her shuttle, filled with optimism and determination. The journey was long and uneventful, but she cherished the solitude, finding comfort in the rhythmic hum of the spacecraft and the endless starfields stretching beyond the cockpit window. After countless days, her destination came into view, a vast, barren planet orbiting a pale, dying star. The descent through the planet's atmosphere was turbulent, with fierce winds and sandstorms buffeting the hull of her shuttle, but Amy's steady hands guided the craft through the chaos. At last, she landed smoothly, the landing gear sinking slightly into the fine, powdery sand that stretched out endlessly before her. As she powered down the engines and stepped onto the alien soil, she felt a sense of awe and trepidation. The sun above was dim and distant, casting an eerie silver glow across the desolate landscape. The air was thin, devoid of any familiar scents, and the silence pressed down on her like a heavy weight. Amy took a deep breath inside her helmet, adjusted the sensors on her visor, and set to work, eager to uncover the mysteries hidden beneath the sands. For hours, she meticulously scanned the terrain, using her instruments to map the geological features of the area. The readings were strange layers of minerals unlike anything on Earth, along with subtle electromagnetic pulses that hinted at hidden forces below the surface. She collected samples, recorded data, and transmitted her findings back to her shuttle, her excitement growing with each discovery. The planet might have been lifeless on the surface, but something was stirring beneath it, something ancient and powerful. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was it evidence of an extinct civilization, a natural phenomenon unknown to science, or something entirely new? The thought of being the first to unlock these secrets fueled her, and despite the harsh conditions, she pressed on. Just as she finished securing a particularly strange mineral sample, movement flickered at the edge of her vision. Amy froze, her heart skipping a beat. Turning slowly, she spotted figures approaching from the horizon, shadowy, sinuous forms gliding over the dunes with unsettling grace. At first, she thought they might be illusions created by the heat, but as they drew nearer, the figures resolved into clear shapes, a group of alien creatures, unlike anything Amy had ever imagined. They were tall and thin, with elongated limbs, sharp claws, and glowing eyes that flickered with an otherworldly light. Their movements were fluid and coordinated, like predators on the hunt. Amy's breath caught in her throat, and for a fleeting moment, she hoped they might be peaceful. She raised her hand cautiously, attempting a gesture of goodwill, but the creatures gave no sign of recognition. Instead, they spread out, encircling her with a predatory precision that sent a chill down her spine. Before Amy could react further, the aliens attacked. They lunged toward her with terrifying speed, their claws slicing through the air with lethal intent. Years of training kicked in, and Amy dove to the side, activating her suit's defensive systems in a split second. Plasma blasters extended from her gauntlets, and the automated turrets on her back whirred to life, firing bursts of energy that crackled through the thin air. The desert erupted in a storm of light and sound as the battle began. The creatures were relentless, swarming her from all directions, but Amy fought with the precision of a warrior. She fired her plasma blasts with deadly accuracy, each shot hitting its mark, but the creatures were fast, agile, and determined to overwhelm her. One of them managed to land a blow, raking its claws across her side and sending her sprawling into the sand. Gritting her teeth, Amy rolled to her feet and fired a volley of plasma bolts, vaporizing the creature before it could strike again. The battle dragged on, and Amy felt the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her. Her suit's shields flickered, struggling to absorb the repeated impacts, and the sand around her was stained with alien blood and debris, but she refused to give in. Drawing on every ounce of strength and skill, she fought back, her plasma blasters blazing, her turrets whirring, and her mind focused on one goal: survival. One by one, the creatures fell, their bodies collapsing into the sand until at last, the battlefield fell silent. Amy stood alone, panting and trembling, surrounded by the lifeless forms of her attackers. She had won, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Pain shot through her leg, sharp and unforgiving. Glancing down, Amy saw a deep, jagged wound where one of the creatures had slashed through her armor. Blood seeped from the gash, staining the sand beneath her. She tried to move, but her injured leg buckled, and she collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath. The realization hit her like a blow. She was stranded, wounded, and miles away from her shuttle. With no way to call for help, no supplies to last through the night, and no knowledge of what other dangers might lurk on the planet, her situation seemed hopeless. For a moment, she lay there in the sand, staring up at the dim sky, her mind racing with the cruel irony of her fate. She had survived the battle, fought off an alien attack, and protected her discoveries only to die alone on this barren world. But just as despair began to take hold, a distant hum reached her ears. It was faint at first, barely audible above the wind, but it grew louder and clearer with each passing second. Amy squinted into the sky and saw a dark shape descending toward her, a ship, sleek and unfamiliar, its silhouette sharp against the pale horizon. Hope flared in her chest, and with great effort, she propped herself up on her elbows, watching as the craft landed smoothly in the sand. The hatch hissed open, and two figures emerged, their uniforms bearing the insignia of Earth's space agency. Relief flooded through her as they rushed toward her, their voices muffled by her helmet, but filled with urgency and concern. They lifted her carefully, carrying her into the safety of the ship's interior, where the air was cool and familiar. Amy clutched the data recorder she had fought so hard to protect, refusing to let go even as her vision blurred from pain and exhaustion. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the hull as the ship ascended into the pale sky, leaving the alien desert and the lifeless bodies of the creatures far below. Amy lay on the stretcher, her mind teetering on the edge of consciousness, waves of pain crashing over her with every slight movement. Her injured leg throbbed, each pulse a harsh reminder of the brutal encounter she had barely survived. The crew, to rescue operatives in crisp earth-issued uniforms, hovered over her, carefully securing medical patches to stop the bleeding and stabilize her vitals. One of them, a man with sharp features and a calm demeanor, injected a stimulant to keep her conscious. The other, a woman with kind eyes behind a reflective visor, adjusted the cabin pressure and checked the scanners to ensure they were clear for departure. Amy's cracked lips parted as she tried to speak, her voice rasping through her helmet's COM system. The samples. The data double quotes, she whispered, her fingers still curled tightly around the data recorder pressed to her chest. We've got it, the woman assured her gently. You did it, Amy, it's all here. Just hold on, we're taking you home. Home, the word felt distant and unreal, as though the idea of Earth existed in another lifetime, separated from her by the harsh expanse of space. She closed her eyes briefly, the exhaustion dragging her toward unconsciousness like a tide. But she couldn't let herself rest, yet there was too much at stake. She forced her eyes open, staring up at the ceiling of the cabin as the ship climbed higher, the thin atmosphere of the alien world giving way to the cold, infinite blackness of space. The rhythmic hum of the engines was both soothing and surreal, a reminder that she was finally leaving the hostile planet behind. Yet the weight of what she had endured settled heavily on her. Each breath was a battle, each second a small victory over the pain. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. We're on course for rendezvous with the command vessel in 45 minutes. Estimated time to Earth's orbital station, 6 hours. Amy exhaled, her mind racing despite her exhaustion. 6 hours. 6 hours to leave behind the nightmare she had endured, but also 6 hours to reflect on everything she had discovered and everything she had lost. The images from the battle flooded back unbidden, the alien creatures lunging at her, the sharp glint of their claws, the sound of plasma blasts slicing through the air, and the unsettling stillness that followed after the last of them had fallen. She had fought not just to survive, but to protect the knowledge she carried, knowledge that could reshape humanity's understanding of life beyond Earth. The woman tending to her must have noticed the tension in Amy's expression. "Try to rest," she said softly, adjusting the seatbelt across Amy's chest. "We'll wake you when we dock." But rest felt impossible. Amy's mind buzzed with questions that refused to be silenced. What were those creatures? Had they been the remnants of a lost civilization, or were they territorial predators, guarding something hidden beneath the desert sands? And why had the electromagnetic pulses she detected felt so deliberate, like a signal or warning? Was there more to that planet than the desolate surface she had seen? Amy's hand tightened around the data recorder, the rough edges digging into her palm. The samples, the recordings, the logs, everything she had risked her life to collect were now her only link to the truth. And yet, a strange, nagging thought gnawed at the back of her mind. What if she had missed something? What if, in her rush to fight and survive, she had overlooked a crucial clue? The ship shuddered slightly as it reached orbit, the soft vibration pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. Through the small window beside her, Amy caught a glimpse of the alien planet shrinking below, its vast deserts now reduced to a distant, lifeless sphere spinning silently against the backdrop of stars. A strange mix of relief and regret welled up inside her. She had escaped with her life, but she knew deep down that the mysteries of that world would haunt her long after she returned to Earth. Her leg throbbed sharply, reminding her of the immediate reality: she was injured, and badly. The medic placed a hand on her shoulder, offering a reassuring squeeze. "We'll have the best doctors waiting for you when we dock. You'll be back on your feet in no time." Amy gave a faint nod, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed it. Physical wounds could heal, but some scars, those born from fear, isolation, and the unknown, were not so easily mended. She thought of the silence that had filled the desert after the battle, a silence so complete it felt like the planet itself had been holding its breath. What had she disturbed out there? What secrets had been buried beneath the sand, waiting for someone like her to uncover them? The thought lingered as the ship continued its journey, slipping silently through the darkness of space. Amy's eyelids grew heavy despite her efforts to stay awake. Perhaps sleep wasn't such a bad idea after all. If nothing else, it would give her mind a brief reprieve from the endless loop of questions. Slowly, reluctantly, she let her eyes close, surrendering to the pull of exhaustion. She dreamed of the desert, of endless dunes and shifting shadows, of alien creatures rising from the sand, their eyes glowing with ancient knowledge. But in her dream, she wasn't fighting them. Instead, they stood silently, watching her, as though waiting for something. In the distance, the faint hum of an unknown machine echoed through the air, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. The dream was vivid and unsettling, and when she woke hours later to the soft chime of the ship's docking alarm, the memory of it clung to her like a second skin. "We're here," the pilot announced over the intercom as the ship glided smoothly into the docking bay of the command vessel orbiting Earth. The rescue operatives unfastened her restraints and helped her to her feet. Amy winced as pain shot through her leg, but she forced herself to stand, determined not to be carried the rest of the way. With the data recorder clutched tightly in her hand, she limped toward the airlock, the familiar hum of Earth-based technology filling her ears. Beyond the airlock, the vast command vessel awaited. Scientists, doctors, and engineers gathered to greet her, their faces a blur of excitement and concern. Amy knew that once the debriefing began, she would have to relive every moment of her ordeal, recount every discovery, and provide answers to questions she barely understood herself. But for now, as the airlock doors hissed open and the familiar scent of recycled air washed over her, she allowed herself one small, fleeting moment of peace. She was alive, she had made it, and no matter what mysteries lay ahead, She knew she would face them head-on just as she had in the desert, with grit, determination, and the unyielding spirit of a scientist driven by the promise of the unknown. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like this video.